Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back with another live stream / recording of Hearthstone. I guess I'll just call them recordings. There's no real reason to say both. Today is Friday, May 18th. We are starting earlier because of the fact that I finally got a day to set things right and try and reset my insomnia a little bit, and so I woke up early. Mostly I achieved this by being woken up by around 12 the day yesterday and then really not accomplishing anything because I was asleep or half asleep for the entire day, but then certainly being tired enough to fall asleep at a normal time like 10 or 12 at night. Let's trade this out, I suppose. We need to play road cards and beat 3 monster hunt battles, and I gotta be careful. The Tavern Brawl is the old Tavern Brawl, right? Yes. So, play road cards in the monster hunt battles. That's not asking a lot, which also probably means I need to be a little bit careful on news, because it is definitely true that we are still going through something different. I don't know if maybe I just finally tweaked my Twitter account
the trail leads here
to a point where I am seeing every game that's coming out of Steam, and I just was not doing that before, or if there are just a lot more games coming out on stream right now. I'm not sure which one is actually the case. There's also certainly things to talk about, a few news stories, and I kind of like just starting here. I'm filled with this kind of dread of like, oh no, I've started too early. I'm not awake enough to be streaming right now. We'll see if that's the case or not. Tons of news, tons and tons of news to talk about. Gamasutra has a story. Icelandic social game studio Tea Time Games has raised $9 million. This is one of these Gamasutra articles that I'm not sure actually qualifies as news, because it is financial division news, like financial news you would get for if you were investing in the video game industry, which would not be an industry worth ever investing in my opinion. It's like there's better gambles you could do. If you're gonna invest into a gaming industry, why not like casinos? The article does say they're going to use their newfound cash to bolster the 13-person team, and will focus on progress centered around personalization and real-time interactions between players. This more than likely is a article just written for almost no reason. It is kind of a pointless thing. If it was Ubisoft, if it was EA or some big, well-known company, AAA developer that was raising a bunch of money, maybe that would make sense as a financial information, but it's I'm not even sure that is the kind of news that I care to cover, particularly as we're getting overwhelmed on coverage of actual games, and I probably should just try and focus my news. Now this guy. This. And all I have to do is kill one more of his character and he'd lose, but I'll just attack. Eurogamer and pretty much everybody else has been talking about Microsoft officially unveiling a Xbox adaptive controller. Now there's a lot to be interested in on this adaptive controller, although to be fair, the vast majority of people aren't going to buy it because it is $100 for a just to begin with for this controller, and there's kind of more that you would actually probably need if you are differently abled, I guess is the term you use now. Handicapped is probably the old term I'll just revert back to. Because while this Xbox adaptive controller does use the semi-standard of a 3.5, I believe, mono audio jack to connect adaptive technology peripherals to it. Each one of those adaptive peripheral technology peripherals tends to be at least $40, if not $100 more. So if you're severely disabled, you're buying this $100 base, and then you're buying very, very possibly as many, I think there's 19 connectors in the back, maybe, yeah. You could be buying at least another $1,000 worth of technology if you really need that much. And frankly, I think because of its programmability and all of that, you probably wouldn't need that, but I would heavily suspect that very few people are going to be able to play with the adaptive technology controller by itself, because it just doesn't have an X and Y button anywhere. You can program what is the A and B button to be the X and Y button, but that severely limits you down to a percentage of possible games that you could be playing on the Xbox. I assume it also will have drivers to work on the PC. I'd like to see Half Coordinated, who is a speedrunner who has only use of one of his hands and still speedruns. One side of his entire body is actually weakened. I'd like to see what he has to say about it, and if it really is going to be that useful. There is not, it seems like, on the adaptive control technology, not really a great system for the left stick or the right stick, and until somebody gets into it and really looks at it, I'm not sure if you were having to use a blower, which by which I mean you are trying to control something just by blowing into a tube because you are completely paralyzed from the neck down. I'm not sure if you had a blower adaptive technology peripheral like that, if you could program that or get that to work at all as a right stick, or like up and down, left and right, or if you could only connect that as something similar to a button. And if you are paralyzed from the neck down, then one button on a blower is probably not going to work. And the sad truth is, when you're talking disabled people, everybody's disability is a little bit different, and so while this may work well for some disabled people, a significant number of disabled people are still not going to be able to play video games. It may very well be the case that those people would never be able to play video games at all. So that's not the fairest of comparisons, or the most important way. There is also, while they are Microsoft is doing this pretty well, there is also a suspicious, if I put on my tinfoil hat for a suspicious trick here, one of the peripherals that they are planning on selling are USB based thumbsticks, like you would, well, they look exactly like what you would plug into the back of a Wii for a left stick and a click and another button, like, so those accessories that you would always plug into the back of the Wiimote. So tinfoil hat speaking, is this an attempt by Microsoft to sneakily steal the trademark / copyright of Nintendo for that controller? Unless that controller can't be trademarked or copywritten, which maybe it can't. Maybe it's already in the public domain and Nintendo doesn't have it. But it does look exactly like those controllers. Could also be that those controllers are exactly the same controllers, they just have a USB connector on the bottom of them, because maybe the factory in China that was making them said, well, Nintendo's not ordering these anymore, let's see if we can sell them to somebody else. It is also kind of worth pointing out that this is a little bit of a shell game, because it's not Microsoft that's making these. It's, as I understand it, a UK charity called Special Effect that's making these. It's simply more of a case that that Microsoft is somewhat I don't even know how you would describe it.
No, my
Microsoft is just kind of working with them and helping them. So, but it's not really. It's really not a Microsoft's original product. Even if Microsoft developed it, it's not being sold by them. I think it's really ridiculous that there are no X and Y buttons on it, yet you have the pause, the start, and the back button. You have the Xbox logo, but the connect button is actually on the back of the menu. You have another this change between 3 profiles button. You have a headphones button. You have 2 USBs on the side, so there's one on the left side and one on the right side for USB controllers. And then along the back side you have the myriad of adaptive controller things laid out in a somewhat smart way, but also kind of in a slightly difficult way. Like they tried to make it smartly done so that you wouldn't, if you were disabled, you would be able to unplug a connector and plug it back in and know which of the mini ports that are in a row to plug it in, but the plugs still are pretty close to each other, and even with the plugs being pretty close to each other, the device itself is rather huge. And certainly that, I think, is part of the idea of the giant buttons, is that it is designed to just take up what would have otherwise been empty space. I'm not sure 2 giant buttons are necessary when the D-pad you've put on there is just a standard D-pad. And you are basically getting to the point of a fight stick and wiring specific buttons to a fight stick anyways. I could definitely see scenarios where hospitals, organizations buy these adapters for people, and then it ends up costing more money than it would have been to buy a even $200 fight stick and simply wire special buttons to it. As somebody who just last year built a simple arcade fight stick, that for the most part cost me maybe $60. The vast half of that price being just having a piece of wood or plastic to put the buttons and the controller into. But I also don't want to come off and seem like I'm complaining about the adaptive controller. I think this is a great move, and I hope this potentially pushes Sony to do the same. But if I was to take my understanding of the Japanese culture, this is super generalizing, they really don't do a great job of recognizing that people are different in any way in the Japanese culture, and that includes handicapped people. So from what I've heard, it's pretty much impossible to live and be handicapped in Japan. Like, as their older family members get old and sick, they're kind of just left to stay in their house all the time and ignored or taken care of, usually pretty mediocrely by their family. It's you don't see a lot of handicap accessible ramps or anything like that, or from what I understand. In fact, there was a anime movie, I believe it was, that came out just a few months ago called Not Your Name, definitely not Call Me By Your Name. I think it was called Your Voice, and it was talking about a deaf Japanese girl and how she was treated. So when you take that, at my understanding, which could be wrong, of Japanese culture, I don't think Sony or Nintendo particularly are going to come out and try and reduce anything else or produce anything similar to this. If anything, perhaps I could see Microsoft even saying, we'll sell a Nintendo branded version of this, and you can just plug it into the Switch. Does the Switch work with USB controllers? I don't think it does right now, but it probably could be programmed to. Also, you could put in a Bluetooth version of it, and then it should work with the Switch also. Nintendo might have a problem with having an adaptive controller because their entire consoles for at least the past 3 generations have been based around being specifically designed for fully capable players to wave and waggle Joy-Cons or joysticks of some sort. The idea that anyone would dare to play a Nintendo game with a standard controller is offensive to them, then I think they would just expand that to anyone disabled. Again, it would be more likely, I think, if oops, I'm gonna have to remember to turn off that alarm clock. I set an alarm clock at 2 p.m. to try and have a consistent time to wake up, to try and improve my insomnia. Frankly, I would say Nintendo probably wouldn't ever make an adaptive controller or allow this controller to be the one controller that rules them all, which frankly it should be. For the price, it should be this device that you could plug into an Switch or an Xbox or a PC or a PlayStation. There's not even much of an argument these days to even have different consoles. But yeah, I think Nintendo wouldn't do it because they would find it against their own. They'd find it offensive, where I think Sony wouldn't do it because they would just be too lazy. They'd probably run the numbers and say we're simply just not going to make enough money for that to be worth our time. I want to see the price definitely go down on it, the adaptive controller, but then there is also a factor that this is a mass-produced product that they're kind of pretending like they want regular people to buy at a very expensive price, and I feel like that's also a level of insanity. So I wouldn't be surprised if this UK-based charity comes back and says we need some money on Patreon or Indiegogo because we can't afford to fulfill orders, or because we overinvested, or we need donations. Like, inherently I think that might be the next part of this, is that the charity got everybody's attention with this new controller, and then they're going to use that as a springboard to ask for donations to make money that way. I don't think I've seen this one. Divine Shield Taunt. After minions survives damage, gain Divine Shield. I'm going to take this, but I am going to leave because there's really no reason to continue down that path. Since I didn't get any recording done, I wouldn't be opposed to wrapping up the stream today early. It's a Friday, very few people I bet will watch, very few people will get on the chat, I'm sure. That's typically how it goes. And the heat, man. Summer is falling upon us, and in the northern hemisphere at least, and that is something that I'm more and more gonna have to deal with. Otherwise it's going to drain all the energy out of me. Well, meanwhile, your air conditioner bill will drain all the money out of you. Let's see. We're supposed to be playing as Rogue, so let's start a game. Sorry. I'm turning on my air conditioner via phone. Which that will certainly make noise. We got a game on Steam called Mutants Must Die. It's a MS Paint game. When I see that, my accelerated way in which I was doing it last time, I'm gonna probably keep that forever. Because frankly, covering bad games other than just saying your name and saying it looks like garbage is more coverage than they deserve. And I've really got to find a way to make things go faster. We have a game here called The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa, and he looks like one of the characters in an old anime I watched a long time ago. I can't remember the name, but I guess it's a pixely but zoomed in, so there's a decent amount of detail to the point where I'd say it's an artistic style more than an effort to hide a lack of skill. It could be both, but yeah, I would say it's at least in mostly equal parts. It's a action indie adventure RPG beat 'em up retro game, it says.
You like my invention.
It's 80% positive with 20 user reviews. 10% off for $13.49. What do I want to do with this?
So many options. Here we go.
I just want to play It says you should play it if you're fond of good stories with strong dialogues, especially about growing up. You're a fighting game enthusiast, you'll get your hands on some unique brawl mechanics, and I promise you'll be satisfied. You're into some Yakuza delinquent aesthetics. Let's look at the 4 negative ones.
So many options.
Your magic shall not save you.
Attack. Attack. The one negative review in English says, while this game looks interesting, I couldn't play it very long due to the numerous grammatical errors and the combat being so boring. There's a lot of heart put into this game, it just needs more polish. Was hoping the fights would make me think of River City Ransom, but it's really just hold C and spam attacks. If you're like me and looking for to relive River City Ransom and a sticker for grammar, don't buy it. And that's the only one that seems in English. The rest are in other languages like Russian and maybe Korean or Chinese. This game is only in English and Russian, which seems like an odd choice because this definitely looks like it would be a game that should be a Japanese game first and foremost, and it isn't. So I don't know if these assets are original. I kind of have a sneaking suspicion they aren't. Let's see. If I do this, and then take this out, and then play this.
Your magic shall not save you.
Interesting. If the developer of this game wasn't releasing their first game, if they had some name behind them, and if they weren't asking a ridiculously high for $13.50, I might consider this game. I also heavily suspect the reason why a Japanese company hasn't made a game quite like this is this really is 80s anime type stories, and frankly I'm not sure any Japanese company would want to make a entire game where you play as a delinquent youth in the same way that Rockstar Entertainment, when they made Bully, got a lot of bad publicity for that game, and it just probably wasn't worth the effort to make Bully in that setting. Yeah, I don't think there's enough here to justify that really high price. So we have to move on. Next game we have is a text-only dating simulator called Penny Black by somebody who has not made anything else. It is free to play, so you can't complain about that price, but even at that point, it is just such an extremely low quality product, being a text-only dating simulator, that you cannot justify it being on Steam at all. Particularly when we get to our news later, as Steam has decided to start enforcing some rules and kicking off some of the most beloved lewd, arrow, sex games from their store, which is weird because that makes me wonder, are they going to start actually looking at games that get published by Steam Direct, because we get lewd sex games announced and released every single day. So why they're going back and threatening to remove ones from 3 or 4 years ago that actually sold well and actually were good games, while kind of ignoring the problem of the lower quality games. Makes no sense. Let's see. Here's a game called FPV Freerider. It's a RC quadricopter racing simulator. Oh, is that what I was looking at? I looked at the entire trailer and I'm like, it seems like you're just flying around.
Thank you.
It's $5.99. It doesn't have any VR support, and you kind of would think for a game and for the way this looks that it would be VR supported, but it isn't. Most of the assets are used assets poorly. I'm not sure this is to the level of something you just call an asset flip, but it really is just some open world empty sections.
Here we go.
So yeah, I don't think that's a game of quality, although the concept isn't terrible. A quadricopter game where you're flying around a quadricopter, slightly interesting. Probably should just be a mini game. Like, I'm pretty sure that there is some kind of mini game in some kind of militaristic game where you, for a small time, fly around a quadricopter or some other kind of drone, instead of it being the whole thing, because you really have to add content. You have to give the quadricopter some kind of race, some kind of obstacles, some kind of things to fly through before you even have that start to be a fun experience. By itself, it's not. Next game we have is called The Epic Bang Theory, which looks like garbage, and so I don't really see any reason to go any further with it. It's from a developer that's made 3 other things, none of which look great. So let's move on.
None will survive.
Next one we have a game called 7-in-1 Brain Sharpness Bundle. I guess we're back to the point of just getting really bad games. To be slightly fair, and I'm only capable of being slightly fair here with this. 11-in-1 Brain Sharpness, or 7-in-1, whatever this is called. What is it? 7-in-1 is a one-screen game that at the very least has 7 smaller games in it, compared to so many one-screen games that only have 1 game, but they want $14.99. And there's some kind of DLC or to make it a 10-in-1 Brain Sharpness bundles. Like, ridiculous. Nobody's reviewed it. Doesn't look good. Moving on. Maybe I'll get through the news rather quick today because it'll turn out that 99.9% of everything is a bad, low quality game. Next game we have is called Alone in the Forest VR. Explore the forest. So standard dark screenshot syndrome, particularly in VR. That's no way to make a game. $5.99. No reviews. Looks like garbage. And in the same way that I really am not going to say anything on top of that, I'm just gonna stick with, yeah, it doesn't look like it's quality. And that's good enough for me to ignore it. Let's kill that. Let's see. Ikematsu has the Legend of Heroes Trail of Cold Steel 4 details, a couple of characters, so just a couple of pictures and information have been released. This is a Hype Train article type release, so as I'm more and more just focusing on games as they come out and not getting on the hype train of months early. Ignore that. We have a game called Marchin Forest Mylene and the Forest Gift. It's M-Y-L-N-E, and Marchin is M-A with 2 dots above it, A-R, 1-A with 2 dots over it, then R-C-H-E-N. It says free roam in a fully 3D mystical forest together with this character. It says it's an adventure RPG indie. Yep, it looks like it is one of these attempts to be kid-friendly chibi JRPG games. There has been a change that we'll talk about later with the ESRB. Apparently they were giving out free ratings to online-only software, and they're phasing that out completely. I have to read the full story to be certain. So it is possible that a lot of these games were actually getting ESRB ratings, and now they won't, and I think that's for the better. I think Steam needs just kind of its own system away from the ESRB, and then if you happen to see a game with an ESRB rating, then you have more confidence that that is a game that actually was rated and is more likely to be child's age appropriate based on this rating. Where we saw a lot of examples of ESRB ratings for games that seemed like they were either artificially high for no reason or artificially low. Let's see, this game is $13.99. It's under a different name when you buy it, the Japanese name. Let's see what the negative reviews have to say. Nothing, because there's only 12 positive reviews. It says you play as an aspiring apothecary collecting ingredients and making potions. The music in the games fit it perfectly, and the characters are very cute. So, yeah, it looks like it might be the equivalent of a flower gathering simulator, which is actually not as bad as that sounds, because quite frankly, done right, that is a interesting concept for a game, particularly if you just don't want to play an RPG where you have to run around attacking people all the time, and you don't want that gameplay mechanic. This seems to be a fishing mechanic in this game, but so far and potion making. But so far I don't see anything like a sword or a magical attack. Okay, there is some kind of grinding to it, because one screenshot has a fight against a skeleton. It shoots the skeleton rabbit creature, and it has the PlayStation buttons for attack and evade, block. So the square, the triangle, the X, and the circle. This one definitely looks like a game worth keeping an eye on, just for a slightly different experience. Depending on how deep I get into JRPGs, which I would still classify that as a JRPG more than anything else. Maybe we'll make it to rank 20. Rock Paper Shotgun has a review for a game called Red Embrace, which looks like it's a yeah, it's a dating romance novel. I think it's guy on guy. Yeah, you have 3 male people you can date who I think are all vampires, or you're a vampire and you're gonna turn one of them to a vampire. The art style frankly doesn't appeal to me. The edges seem to be a little too sharp on the animation style, but it might appeal to some, and I can't inherently say it's a bad art style. Maybe part of the problem I would say in the art style is that there's not a lot of shadowing and way too much skin tone going on. Yeah, and then like, yeah, it just doesn't look like it was drawn as well as it probably should have been. Where's this game? Interesting that I'm reading this article, but at the bottom, Rock Paper Shotgun decided not to link it to any place. Arguably, this might be yet another example of a game that may soon be not allowed on Steam. So maybe everything will just move over to Nutaku. I believe that's the name of the website that's supposed to be Steam for only sex games.
I wonder.
Let's play this, I guess. Do this.
Yeah, beat it. I fight.
That was a waste of a mana crystal, but whatever. There's literally no link in this entire article. So what's the point of even writing an article about a game if there's no link? Does that mean this game Red Embrace isn't even out yet? Like, maybe. Seems like an awful waste of time, particularly since there's things that are out now you could be talking about. And these big video game companies are so, video game news companies are so focused on getting the new,
the light protects me.
The scoop, I guess, that they don't even bother to actually say anything or cover anything in its proper time. Of course, that is in itself becoming a rant of sorts for me. Rock Paper Shotgun has Valve's local streaming Steam Link app, hits Android and iOS. I've told that to install on my phone. I'll play with it, but I probably won't come back with any real report or anything. More than likely it's fine. Seems like the Steam Link app will work as long as you have a very good wireless network or wired network on your cell phone, which how you would have a wired network on your cell phone is kind of beyond me. Your Gamer has an article. Square Enix makes further improvements to the disappointing Chrono Trigger PC port. It's nice to see them continue to work on it. Says Square Enix has released another update, further improving the user interface, overhauling player sprites on the world map, and more, all intended to bring the game more closely in line with the beloved Super NES original. And I think because they're working on it, at some point that might be a good game, actually worth owning. Right now, I'm not sure you can make that claim.
Ready?
Here we go.
Gematsu has Coda Princess EX launches July 31st on North America and Europe. I think we've talked about that multiple times. So either it's been talked about by Gematsu multiple times, or it simply is a case of the of other people reporting upon it a lot earlier than Gematsu. Let's see. If I do this,
Here we
then
go.
that should work. Okay, Blizzard had something that they were announcing. Apparently the page changed. Let's see. Rock, paper, shotgun. They're on a bit of a tear because I haven't been seeing Rock, paper, shotgun as a news source on my Twitter feed at all for the last week. So I suspect that is they have. I guess I kind of have to suspect actually that they have been reporting and I've just been missing their articles. Otherwise, they've just not been doing their job, which would be certainly weird. Could be that they simply just didn't have anything to say that was important. Anyways, moving on, they have a steampunk sailing adventure for the Lone Sails is out now. So it's on Steam, so more than likely I would have covered it anyways. It's rated very positive, 91% of 214%. Says it's an adventure, indie, atmospheric. It seems like the majority, because I remember this game, it's kind of like an FTL management game of your ship as your ship is slowly moving. But yeah, I'm looking at the trailer right now and I don't have the best of feeling about it as a game. It's not giving me a lot to work with. It's visually interesting, certainly, but it's not showing me a gameplay mechanic that's interesting, or a story, or a character, or frankly much of anything. And that was the entire trailer I just watched, and it's kind of nothing. It's rated E for everyone. $14.99 without any discount. Key features, one of the key features is it is a zombie-free post-apocalypse, so you don't have to deal with that. Metacritic 78%. I guess I have to wishlist it. This is another example of a game where there's just a high enough percentage of people telling me or telling the general public in their positive ratings that it's a game worth looking at. Of course, I have to evaluate what looking at even means, considering that the next summer sale is probably not going to have me buy anything other than Pinball Arcade pinball tables. So if that's the case, I'll be looking at these games in the next winter sale, which is quite a far time away. But I guess that's fine too, because I'm still very much with the YouTube channel in this terrible position that it very possibly will be in this terrible position for the rest of the eternity, where the worst thing that could happen to my channel is that I would get a video that blows up so much that it gets like 4 or 5 million views, and the video won't be monetized because I don't have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. Like, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, certainly, because if I got 4 or 5 million views on one video, it would probably push a lot of people to watch my other videos. But until it can actually be financially beneficial, last thing I want to do is make my channel super popular and spend a lot of extra effort on it, which playing new games and looking at new games to play goes down a well that I don't need to go down right now because I have so many old games to play still. Well, it's been 45 minutes and definitely some uncertainty with how long we're going to stream today. Still need to play 18 road class cards, so that'll keep us in the Asian account. But I'm like, almost every Hearthstone stream now, the concept and the desire is there to wrap up early and just move on and take the rest of the day off, or maybe take a long enough break that sometime late in the night for a day that I stream Hearthstone, I'll come back and maybe do some other recording. Anyways, that's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.